going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Speaking Sessions podcast. I've got Jordan Dieterle here, and he is a seasoned service account manager with over 12 years of experience in the automation and electrical space. Throughout his career, Jordan has demonstrated a keen ability to build and nurture relationships, leveraging his extensive network to drive growth and success. Currently, he is dedicated to expanding the presence of R&E automated systems in the southern region, employing a multifaceted approach that includes sales, marketing, and word-of-mouth promotion. He is passionate about innovation and customer satisfaction. Jordan continues to be a pivotal force in the industry, helping to elevate R&E automated systems to new heights. And besides talking a little bit about R&E, about automated systems, those of you that know my background, I'm a nerd at heart. I love talking about automation. We're going to talk about the differences between engineering and sales and how that communication looks, that transition for Jordan, along with some common pitfalls that he has experienced in the automotive industry around communication. But without further ado, Jordan, welcome to the show.
Hey, Philip, thanks for having me on, man. I'm excited.
Yeah, of course. And just some background, what's really cool is that we connected through LinkedIn. Although we're here locally, pretty local to each other, our first connection was through LinkedIn. Shows the power of social media through posting videos and stuff like that, and really just engaging with people. Because ironically, I had messaged you a couple of times. You never responded to those messages until I commented on a post of yours. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, yeah, let me talk to this guy. He seems all right. And then you saw I had been messaging you. So it's just kind of funny how it all kind of turns out and how social media can really help transform our lives.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It was kind of crazy that, I think it was like 4 times that you reached out and I was like, oh, man, I was like, that's what I do. So it kind of transitioned. Then, he commented. I'm like, man, he really wants to get to know me.
Yeah,
let's see what he wants to talk about.
Exactly, man. And I'm glad that we finally were able to connect because, yeah, you are a great guy. You're a great connector and everything like that. But we're going to talk more about you real quick. So tell us kind of that background story, because I mentioned and teased that engineering to salesperson, if you will. I know it's more business development and everything and relationship building. But tell us a little bit about that. Would love to hear more about what R&E does as a whole. But also let's sprinkle in like your journey with R&E as being a programmer and eventually moving over to business development.
Yeah. So I started we'll start from like college area, just to kind of give you a background. I went for electrical technologies, and I was originally going to go for engineering, and I was like, man, I'm just not wanting to go for 4 years to school. It just didn't entice me to want to, continue on after a period of time. And I'm like, I'm going to go to work. So I went to work. I went to be an electrician, and I just felt that I wasn't using my full potential, right? So I went to, a couple different automotive places and worked there, and I'm like, man, I don't want to be in a factory all day long every single day. But it was good, it was good money. It was, I was learning, I was interested, so I went into the automation space, right? And I found R&E. It was probably 2017. When I started with R&E, I was just a controls engineer for them. I took on my first project with them, and I just kept absorbing everything that I could find. Anybody that would show me anything, I was willing to learn. I was willing to listen, and it just kind of grew and grew, and I got the knowledge that I was looking for. And I went to multiple projects and just anything that was available for me to learn. I was there, and I was the first one in line, right? It was kind of, hey, if you'll show me, I'll do it. They say, you don't have to do it, I'll do it. And, I took over like lead positions every time that I would get on a project. I would lead the project, and then it just continued to grow from there. And then I was on a project for 5 years. So I took a project, I was on a project for 5 years and down here in the upstate. And I took that project, and it was me, and I brought in 29 other R&E guys to this specific project.
Man.
So it just kind of grew to where I was like, man, I'm leading this project, but I'm also, doing sales, and I like this. It's fun. and I'm just communicating with people, and then I'm just kind of directing people, right? And say, telling them, hey, we need to get this project done. We need to do this. And it was the communication of, talking with management at the customer site and then talking with, management on the R&E side. But to say in turn, I was just, the messenger in between, using communication, and talking their language, is say to understand, hey, we need this for this specific project. Now that project might have only been a couple weeks, and say, but it usually turned into months because I could keep that person so busy. So that was the advantage that I was, able to, learn, because I knew the whole plant, right?
Mm.
So that was the technical background to kind of transition. And as that project kind of winded down, they said, they're like, hey, we don't really need a transition guy anymore. Let's, the customer's like, let's let him go. They say, see what else we can find. They say, see if, because he's trained multiple people for us, which I did. I mean, I trained probably 4 or 5 different other controls guys to do what I was doing, and I was just kind of managing their projects. So I took that and I was like, okay, I got, as a contractor for R&E, you're let go. So I'm just like, okay, what do I do? I'm trying to find a solution, and say, I get a project. All right, like, let's go to this one, same here in the upstate. Let's go to the next one, do the same thing. In turn, they say it didn't go that way. The owner called and said, hey, I want you to come to Michigan. We want to talk. Turned into a promotion to, the account manager for the South, which obviously led into sales. And for anybody that doesn't know, R&E is, a contract house. We have 400 field service engineers all over the world. We have skilled labor in controls, robotics, welding, engineering, and maintenance techs and welders. And we work for multiple customers. They say big customers that, you typically see, on the, online. They say that you'd see in commercials. They say all that, right? So automotive is, our big seller. We're about 45% of, say, our business is in automotive, but the rest is, various, to say, roller coaster stuff, they say pharmaceutical, they say food and beverage, they say. So we're a very diverse company. But so I transitioned into that sales side, and it just kind of became lucrative, and I started to reach out to people by, emails, phone calls, and just going to events. And then I was like, I need to do a different aspect to gain sales. And I was like, what is the best avenue? And I just came to social media and communicating. And I just started to, hey, anybody that comment on anything, I'm commenting back. Anybody that's getting promotion, I'm commenting back. And it just kind of started to lead into, okay, they say LinkedIn is, my number one seller. They say, and it's, the greatest avenue that I've took approach on, and I've gained a lot of friends from it too, including yourself. And it's always been good, and I've enjoyed it. And so yeah, that's kind of the backstory of how it led into where I'm at now. And now it's, I'm busy as all get out, which is good.
Yeah, I like that. And one thing that I failed to make sure that people recognize, I think those that are listening in the manufacturing space will understand what automation is. But those that aren't in the manufacturing space or aren't in that automation world, so to speak, can you explain real quick what automation means?
Yeah. So automation is basically a machine that is doing the work for the human aspect, right? So we're taking the human element out of manufacturing, a car, or we're utilizing robots. Now we're not actually taking people's jobs. We're basically replacing operator level jobs with tech level jobs, let's say, when we're automating something. So if we're taking a couple operators out, we still need technicians to, fix those machines. So we're basically trying to automate a process that is manually or labor intensive, for an operator, where they could potentially get hurt, or it is just more cost effective for the manufacturer to automate that process. So it's basically we're trying to increase, productivity, and also reduce injury for, I guess the end customer and employee.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think that's a great way to explain it. Yeah, basically you're taking a process, and rather than people doing that work. And, it's just this whole manual process, point A to point B. Now you're taking all these inputs that used to be people, sensors, all this equipment, and bringing it to life, so to speak. So that way it can build up something, whether that be a car, I've even seen cakes being built through automation and everything. So
your roller coasters,
yeah, roller coasters,
right?
yeah, how do the
It's
brakes
all
turn on?
automated.
Yeah, how do you know you're going to go uphill? Like, how does that roller coaster keep going and all that stuff? How do you not fly off the track? So that's not so much automation, but still within all of that is in the automation scope, so to speak. So yeah, there's a whole different world back there. So I appreciate you explaining that. Now I want to go back. You mentioned something about, you were the controls engineer, and then all of a sudden you started like leading teams and stuff like that. And oftentimes, and I've heard this said before, I know I've said similar things, that when it comes to leading people and leading teams, is that you have to start doing that work before you're actually put in that title, so to speak. Like you started leading a team, started managing projects before you even got into sales, which a lot of times, a lot of companies, I feel, do it a little wrong, where they put a salesperson as a project manager also, and there's not really that step off point where now a project manager takes over, because you're just a relationship connector, and you get the project and you should hand it over. But talk to us a little bit about how that looked. Like, how in the world did you just kind of step into it? Because a lot of us think that as well, or I say a lot of us, but there's definitely those of us that maybe they don't want to do the work before they get paid for it, so to speak. But it sounds like you just started doing that work and then eventually got to that point where you were starting to get paid for it, moved into a new position and everything.
Yeah. So obviously, say the way that I look at it is, I'm high energy, very outgoing, like to, have conversations and, keep, people entertained and make the job, the job fun. And I want to make the job fun, but I also want to make it so that we're learning and we're getting what the customer needs done. So I was taking my knowledge, that I gained over time. And obviously, I had a very young background in electrical. So electricity was always my go-to to solve a problem most of the time. So I just kind of got that understanding of, hey, say, I've been doing this for, multiple years. So it's just kind of like, I just, would willing to share that information with the guys that I'm working with. And, they were like appreciative of it. Right. So they were always like, hey, like, what did you do to fix this, or how are you doing that? And I just explain it. I mean, I'm going to sit down and explain it. And they say, if it takes me 10, 15 minutes to explain it, even though the machine might be down, they say, if I explain that for 10, 15 minutes, they say, I can explain it to them. And then the next time they're not going to call me, right? They're just going to fix it because they know. So the guys appreciated that. And, they would go back and they're telling other people, hey, Jordan will show you this, Jordan will show you that. And they say, it just kind of turned into like, that relationship building, that I was like building relationships, even with, guys that are just like me, a controls engineer, a robotics engineer, a maintenance guy. And we became friends. Right. So as I'm doing that, I'm also building, relationships with the management teams, and, using those relationships. And we're going out, for, dinner, we're going to barbecues together, and it's just kind of, I just managed that time, in my working career in the field to, help build those relationships with the individuals. And then I turn around and say, once I got the opportunity to go to the sales, I kind of generally had an idea of how to do it. Obviously, I took a lot of guidance from upper management of, hey, this is how we used to do it. But I also transitioned into, okay, this is kind of my way of thinking, the way that I think the world is going to go, which was obviously communicating through, social media and, word of mouth. They say locally, because I'm the only account manager down here for time and material side of Arnie's business. So I need to make sure that anybody that is in automation knows who I am, right? If they don't know me, then I need to know them, right? So they say, if you want to know me, you go ahead and reach out to on LinkedIn. I'll gladly accept your connection. So that's just kind of the way that it started, and it's grown into what it is today. Is say where I'm actively reaching out. I'm cold calling. I say I'm still connecting with 100 people a week. I say that's the limit on LinkedIn. So I say if I'm connecting with you, I'm connecting because I want to get to know you.
Yeah, and it's really about that relationship, and that's what I've found with you is you're all about building that relationship, and it's not just okay, let's get this business transaction. It's about actually building a true relationship, which is sales, which is leadership, all of that. We have to have that. And I noticed you said that with the guys that you were working with, you built up that relationship, you built up that trust. And when you needed them to do something, that trust and that relationship was there for them to actually start doing that work. And
yeah, and they still call me today.
yeah, oh yeah, yeah. And that's
if they need something, they're calling.
Yeah. If you've really built up that relationship, those people feel like they can trust you and they're going to come to you when things are good, of course, but then also when things are bad. And I think too many leaders don't think about that. If I don't build up a relationship, people, when things are good, they'll probably try and talk to me and let me know. But when things are bad, they're going to be afraid of what I'm going to say as the leader. So therefore, their employees are going to be hesitant to communicate that, hey, by the way, we just had this huge issue happen. They're going to try and, I don't want to say it. And then it's going to be too late by the time that manager figures it out. So really building that relationship is crucial. Now, as you started leading these people, and I found for myself and I found for other new leaders, it's kind of uncomfortable to tell somebody to do something, especially if you're on the same level. But even if you're like new to management or new to some kind of leadership position, for you then to be like, hey, go do this work. Especially, I mean, I've been in that same boat where it's like I was the engineer, now I'm the project manager or salesperson. And I've got to tell a guy that used to be an engineer just like me, who still is the engineer, to go do this work now. And that's kind of like at least in my mind, it's a little tough. And I feel like other people have that same internal mental issue to overcome. How did you overcome that besides building those relationships to be comfortable with directing people to do tasks?
Yeah. So yeah, that's a strong point. I did struggle with that at first. And then it was once I kind of got, like the backing of, hey, I can do the work too. And I'm willing to help you and show you that. And once they started to trust me, then it was like, hey, I say this would be helpful for me to just listen to him because he does understand the process and he does understand the programming or whatever it was we were working on. Right. And even in the management side, it was, I was very open to asking questions. I'm not afraid to ask a question. Never have been. It's just been I would say that's a big strength because if I don't know, I'm going to ask. I'm going to call you and I'm going to ask, hey, what did you do for this? Or, what was your solution or how would you approach this? Like I ask those questions all the time. And it's, once I get that guidance from somebody that's been in that position, I'm open to hearing what they did. And, I might tweak it into my own way, but it seems to be once I take the advice in, is I can usually, relay that to the individual that I'm trying to, hey, to, I guess, teach or show, or I need you to do this. And they say, I might get a little pushback sometimes, but it's at the end of the day, it's like, hey, we need to get this done. I don't even care if I have to be there working with you. I'll help you. I say, let me go grab my tool belt, So I've did that even as a sales manager, or account manager, just to, say, hey, I'm right here with you doing it. And it seems to be that, guys appreciate that, and they're very open. They're like, hey, he'll actually come do it with me and I don't have to worry, we're going to get it done together. So that's kind of how I've solved it. And it's just more of that friendly aspect, the outgoing aspect. And, one of the biggest things too is like when we get a project done, I'm like, hey guys, let's go grab lunch, and I'm buying. So
Nice.
that seems to be helpful. Yeah.
Free lunch is always a good thing, but I like that, man, really getting in there and starting to turn a wrench, if you will, with the guys. I've always found that to be helpful. That's a tactic I like to use. And then really just asking for feedback, asking for their thoughts. What do they think? And really just getting them engaged and not making it seem so much that I'm telling you to do this. I found
Yes.
that when I do that, and really goes back to relationships, I know I said besides relationships, but really building that relationship. When I have that relationship with the people that I lead, I found when it is time that I've just got to say, I need you to get this done, that they're willing to do it because they know that Philip or Jordan doesn't just come to them every time and say, hey, get that done. Hey, get that done. If that's the only conversations that you have with people, it's very hard to lead them doing that.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And, I mean, the advantage too of, getting in there and working with them and, building that relationship is I know, their kid's birthday is coming up. I know that, they're, say having, a get together this weekend or they're going out on the boat, right? I say, so I always want to hear, hey, what are you guys doing this weekend? I'm always asking those type of questions too, not just, to, basically create conversation. It's just more of to get to know them even more. Right. And, as a sales guy, I'm actually jotting that down even for my own guys. I want to know who they are, right? I put that in my CRM. I need to know who they are. I want to find out more about them because at the end of the day, I say when I really do need something, I say, and they're like, hey, I'm really struggling with this, or I need to find something for, my kid, he needs this specific design of shoes or something. Hey, I know somebody right here, and I'll send it to them right at whatever is needed, I say, because I'm trying to learn more about each individual. And I mean, obviously keeping track to make sure that I can, find out more.
Yeah. Always fixing problems. That's the best way to go about it too, being the problem solver for anything,
Yes.
even if it's technically outside of the scope. I'm kind of curious
Yep.
on a personal perspective. How are you going about like making a note of that information so you can put it back in your CRM later? Because I would think it'd be kind of weird. Like, oh, they said they're going to go out with their kids. Hold on, let me write down here on my note or put it in my phone real quick so you can go transition that later into the CRM. So how are you going about doing that?
I mean, it's just more of like, I say I remember bits and pieces of the conversation and I'll just like put it in there and say when I'm jotting down stuff. I mean, I might not get all the information, but it's, somebody that I'm really, intrigued to stay with or want to, really stay connected with. They say I'm always making sure that, hey, I say I'm keeping up with what they're doing. And, just obviously staying connected, reaching out, at least once a month to see, hey, what are you doing this weekend, or, whatever's needed to, keep in contact. Even, guys that I'm physically working with, we play golf, they say every week. And I've invited customers, I've invited other people. They say to come play golf. They say, some guys I've never played. Well, it's a good time. We go out, we play golf and have a good time. It's nothing crazy. We talk about a little bit of work, talk about a little bit of personal, it's just inviting, having that great time together. And, I might hear something, hey, they say, I'm going to need some help on this project, and I'm like, oh, really? And, then it turns into, they reach back out, the following week because we talked about it on the golf course. Right. So, and I have it jotted down that they might need help or they are looking for something. And it's kind of even crazy. I've had where I had a customer that, hey, he needed his garage, they say, wired or electrically wired. And I said, well, I can do that. I'll help you out. And I went over there and I say, we wired up his garage for a weekend and, it just kind of turned into it. And the next thing you know, a week later, I'm getting a call.
Nice.
So saying it's like, I appreciate you. You appreciate me. I say, I appreciate it. And, he just couldn't believe that I knew that and it just kind of worked. Right.
Yeah, I'd be like, I'm the technical sales guy. All right. I know technical.
Yeah. So it just kind of worked.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's awesome, man. And so we've been talking about like ways to communicate better, but I'd be interested to hear maybe some common pitfalls, some common things that you see as you're going to these customer sites and stuff where communication is not so great, and maybe some things you've done to overcome that, or some ideas and suggestions for people to help overcome some of those common pitfalls. So you have any like funny stories or anything where communication was just terrible?
Yeah. So say sometimes they say, I get into like where customers, like we place, individuals, let's say with customers and, they're highly skilled individuals. Right. And we're trying to say, hey, this is his strength. This is his strength. And sometimes they say, it's like I have to, explain that to, the customer that, hey, this guy might be better suited for here. And they say, or we're shuffling around to say, resources to help the customer. Say that seems to be a lot of the struggle. And then obviously, dealing with, on the personality level is sometimes placing contractors or anything like that into a new plant is always harder because sometimes personalities do collide. So we're always trying to adjust to say that, I'm always asking the customer, how are they doing? What can I do to make your life easier? How can I make everything better? So I'm asking those type of questions to my clients too. And because I want to know so that I can make sure that I'm placing the right people. And sometimes it's like, yeah, okay, this one isn't working out as well as I need. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, you have 5 of our guys. I say, can one of the other 5 do that? And they're like, well, I don't know. Let me ask. So, and it's just, basically giving ideas and working as a team with the customer to solve their problem is kind of what I seem to be really good at, kind of figuring out. And sometimes it might not be another guy. It might be, just we need, to bring the whole team together to see, hey, can we divide this up into 4 different places to say between those, 5 guys and saying you guys, each of them do 25% of it or 20% of it. Right. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of how I've approached that and it seems to be working so far. I mean, obviously I'm always adjusting, to try to help that. And as every sales guy does, you got to adjust on how you reach out and, do certain things. So I'm always adjusting.
Yeah. And that life of a sales guy, right? A life of really a leader too. You have to adjust to the situation. You have to adjust to the people that you're working with. And a lot of times that's what I found with a lot of communication. It's because that person, especially when we think about an engineer, they're here, they're laser focused. All they're focused on is what's right in front of them. And the nice thing as a leader, typically you're a step back, you're not right in the weeds. So you tend to be able to see everything. But communication tends to go bad when we only focus on what's right in front of us, or if we assume the knowledge that everybody has. So like at the beginning, I asked, hey, real quick, let's take a step back. What is automation? A lot of people don't know what that is. I try and tell my wife about, she's like, I don't know what you do for work. And I try and tell her, I'm like, oh, I automate the process of building a car or stuff like that. Like, I don't know how to make it more simple without being like, well, you take this and that and the other and you put it all together and boom, like there.
I always compare it to Legos.
Yeah.
I say everybody knows how to build Legos. I say, but it's just a little more complex than Legos.
Just a little bit more. Yeah. Except for
a little bit more. I always say that just because it's easy. It's, it's dulling it down to a 5-year-old level.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Exactly. But yeah, really being able to take that step back. And I found that's really the biggest thing. And where I get in the most trouble is when I am too much in the weeds and I don't pull back to think about the people around me. Are they in the weeds with me? Are they on that project with me and everything? So yeah, really taking that step back, looking at it in a different light is a good thing. It's cool that you're doing that, especially as somebody who's not in that project. You're kind of helping manage it and manage a relationship more than anything.
Yep. Oh yeah.
Yeah,
it's exactly how it works. They say, and it's working pretty well. I enjoy it. Obviously, they say, building the relationships is probably the best part. Obviously, I miss the technical side a lot. I say I try to still get involved, but yeah, it's the relationship. I try to still keep up, and I'm still trying to sharpen my knowledge. I'm still watching the videos, trying to make sure, hey, what's the new technology coming out? Right? They say we want to always stay on top of that because when the customer does say something like automation 4.0 or something like that, I'm like, oh, I got to know what that is, Yeah. So you got to always stay on top of, the technical side too.
Yeah. And I would love your opinion or how you navigate this. Cause actually you mentioned automation 4.0. I don't know if it's the same thing as industry 4.0 or not, but I remember I was in an interview one time and I was leading the interview, one of the people interviewing somebody. And we asked about what is industry 4.0. And I had no clue what it was, but I was like, this was kind of on a list of questions we were supposed to ask. So I'm like, let's see, maybe I can learn something from it. And that person went on and on and on. And I could kind of tell, like, I'm like, that doesn't sound right. And then I looked it up and it wasn't right. So clearly they went in and were like, well, I just got to try and answer it. I don't know what it is, but I'm just going to kind of fluff my way through it and hope that I answered it right rather than
Mm,
just saying, you know what, I don't know. And then we
mm.
can move on from there. But how do you navigate that? Because I'm sure that happens often with you. You come into a new company you've never been at, or a new process, whatever that may look like, and you've got to get more information. So how do you handle the I don't know situation?
Yeah. So when
And don't
so
tell
I
me
guess
I
to say
don't know.
how I
We'll figure it
do.
out later on the podcast. Gotta
Yeah.
answer
No.
it
No, I wouldn't do that.
now.
So what I typically do is if I if I don't typically know the answer right off the bat, I will say that I will find a solution for this, or I will reach out to somebody that might know. But more than likely, I'll say, well, give me a minute and I'll look and see what I can find on the information for Arnie or whatever it might be related to, right? Um, Typically, I'll find the information, or I'll ask, or I'll come back to them and say, yes, this is what I think it is. If somebody is giving me information that I already know, and I don't think it's correct, obviously say I wait and I listen and I hear, and I'll say, well, aren't you sure it's like it's this, right? Or it's automation 4.0, or whatever it might be. I'll listen and just kind of hear them out, and then they say we'll try to find a common solution, right, together to make sure that hey, you're actually saying the right thing. Now if I'm interviewing somebody, obviously I'm gonna make sure that it's actually right.
Yeah.
But yeah, so usually I'll just try to find a solution, and I might even ask more questions, right, just in communicating with them. And I might drill them in 4 or 5 different questions to kind of get another way for them to re-ask the question where I can know the answer, right?
Yeah.
That's another way, is to find the solution instead of I don't know. But I don't know is an answer, and it's a good one sometimes,
Yeah.
right? Because if I don't know, I don't want to give you say a line where I don't actually know, and then you're like, oh, he's an expert.
Mm. Yeah,
So
exactly. And too many people are afraid to say the I don't know, but it is okay to say it. Now you
yep.
need to back it up with like, hey, but I'll find that out for you or something with that. Don't just say, I don't know, and then sit there.
Yeah. Yep.
But yeah, and I've actually done that myself. I was like asking questions like, hey, wait a second, let me, and you don't literally say, wait a second, but you'll ask like probing questions because sometimes they're not very clear on what they're actually asking for. And they may not even know exactly what they're asking for, especially I found from a technical perspective, if it's a manager asking for technical stuff, they don't really know 100%. They've heard things, they put bits and pieces together, but they don't know it all. So asking questions, more questions to understand better can actually help you answer that question there, because how they asked it, you didn't understand it. But when you start asking more questions, you can then understand what it is they're actually asking for. So, yeah, great
Yes.
tips there. And then going back to the relationships, if you don't know, like, hey, you know what, I don't know, but let me reach out to my contacts that are in this space as well, that they've probably dealt with this. Or for you with R&E, and we've got over 400 people, I know somebody within our company is going to know this information, and let me get with them and get back to you. So if you're working with a company, that's another great thing to make your company look even better. Like, hey, I don't know everything, but between myself and the rest of the company, we pretty much do know everything, if you will.
Yes.
So it's
Yes.
another,
Exactly.
yeah, another.
I like that. I like that answer. Say.
There you go. Yeah, and
Say.
it spotlights you. It does.
Yeah.
Well, spotlights the company rather. I mean, it still makes you look
Yes.
good because you're confident in yourself, but it also makes the company look good because, like, oh wow, they've got, now you just randomly threw out the little sales pitch about your company. Oh, we've got over 400 experts that definitely somebody in the company is going to know that answer. We've got a vast amount of experience and knowledge. So boom, right
Yes.
there, you made a little tidbit of a sell just there without even trying.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
last thing for you, man. Like, yeah, I've been loving this conversation and everything. I want to know, how do you make yourself stand out? Oftentimes, as leaders, as people trying to build themselves up and stand out, they struggle with that. So, what are you doing as Jordan to stand out from the rest of the crowd?
So, What I am doing is a lot of is I've been on the marketing side of Arnie, and obviously standing out is was basically I have also created a podcast as well. It's Tech Talk with Arnie Automated. We're adamantly, looking for more guests to join too. And obviously Philip's been on mine as well. So it's always been a fun time. I say, just connecting with other like-minded individuals in the automation space. Also I say, being very involved in LinkedIn. I'm always looking to, meet people. I'm always messaging, and just kind of having a general conversation. It doesn't even have to be about, automation or a sale. I just look to, communicate with people and have a good time. And say, either if it's going to, a networking event and, grabbing dinner, lunch, breakfast, or even coffee. I'm open to, talking to anybody to, just having a conversation. And it might not even be related to my industry, but, they might know somebody that needs that support, or they're looking for somebody that, might need that or might need what we're looking for. And if I can help them, I'll gladly help them too. I did that probably 6 or 7 times now where, a buddy of mine was like, hey, I'm looking for this. And it turned into like the next week, I'm like, hey, I know somebody, I can refer them. And, I referred them, that person, and they made the sale and they were super happy. And at the end of the day, the client was happy. So I'm always looking to do that. And they say, it's just, that's how I make myself stand out is like, I'm going to take action. I'm going to help who I'm communicating with and trying to, grow that and build, connections and relationships with, the people that I do know. And I'm willing to share anybody's info. I mean, obviously I just, send, hey, I'm sharing your info. Sometimes people are like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, I'm sharing your info because I feel like you might have this need. So yeah, I say they're like, okay. And, or I invite them all to lunch and, then they all share their info with each other. But yeah, it seems to work, and, it's turned out pretty well. And, I'm always adapting as I've said before, but that seems to be what's going well for me right now.
Nice. So be careful. I know I've got a lot of extra spam emails here lately, and spam calls because I'm friends with Jordan. He must have shared my email on an email list. He wanted to
no, not that. I'm still texting you it.
I'm just kidding. But yeah, you're right, man. Like the relationships, and that's what I took out of that. Like being a relationship builder and a problem solver are the two things that really are helping you stand out. And that really for across any industry, those are two huge things that if you do those alone will transform your life and your business. And so, and I can see that in you in just a short amount of time we've known each other. I've been seeing that in you the whole time. That's definitely something that has stuck out for me from you and everything.
Same. I mean, you've introduced me to people, so
yeah,
you did the same thing.
We've got to connect people. We've got to build up relationships. They say rising tide lifts all boats or something along those lines and everything. So that's what it's all about, just helping each other out. We never know who we're going to connect with we can help them and they can help us. So it's all about the connections for sure. Jordan, speaking of connecting, if people want to connect with you, where's the best place for them to do that at?
They can connect with me on LinkedIn, or they can shoot me an email. They say it's jdieterle@arnieautomated.com. As LinkedIn is probably your best option first, and then we'd go from there, obviously. And shoot me a message. I'm always open to talking to people. I mean, obviously my calendar isn't wide open because otherwise it'd be booked. They say with ones that I can't always talk to, but obviously if you shoot me a LinkedIn connection, more than likely I'll share my info, my phone number, and all that. They say I'm pretty open to doing that.
Yeah, awesome. Well, Jordan, man, appreciate you coming on the podcast. Long time overdue to get you on here, but really appreciate it. And so for those of you that are listening, if you made it this far, go ahead and like and subscribe. Make sure that you stick around and watch the more videos. We've got plenty on YouTube, plenty of stuff on the podcast and everything. And go follow Jordan and myself to be able to learn more about the automation space and, of course, public speaking and communication for me. But with that, you guys have a healthy and blessed day.